Hi. I'm going to walk through how I compress three benchmarks, Live Code Bench, AALCR, and MMMU, down to a fraction of their original size and why the results you get from the smaller set are still trustworthy. So the core idea is that the key insight is that benchmark items are not all equal. If every model you're getting if every model you're testing gets a question right, that question tells you nothing about which model is better. Same goes for questions every model fails. The only items that actually change rankings are the ones that split the field. Some models pass, some don't. So instead of keeping items randomly, I keep the ones that are most likely to separate models. I call these discriminative items, and I give them a 1.5 times higher chance of being selected. Everything else still gets represented. You need some easy and hard items to anchor the scores, but the budget concentrates on what actually matters for the ranking. So how it works in practice. For Live Code Bench and AALCR, I look at scores from three reference models across all items. For each item, I count how many models passed it. Items where one or two models passed, not all, not none, are the discriminative ones. Those get oversampled. I also split items by prompt length, short, medium, long. This matters because long prompts expose different failure modes. A model might handle short coding problems fine, but fall apart on longer ones. Without the split, a random draw might accidentally test only short problems and miss that. That's that. The result, Live Code Bench goes from 315 items down to 100. AALCR goes from 100 down to 40, and 40 is a hard floor that I enforce in the code. Because the LLM judge scores used in AALCR are noisy enough that are going lower would make the noise dominate the signal. The MMU encoder probe. OB. MMU is a 12,000 item multimodal benchmark, and the random sampling here is more severe. Most of these items use photographs or paintings, image types where a model can often get the right answer just by reading the question carefully without really processing the image. If you're trying to catch a regression in the image encoder specifically, the part of the model that actually looks at pictures, a random sample of 200 items will mostly miss it. So my MMU pruner deliberately oversamples the image types that force genuine visual reasoning. Medical scans, chemical structure diagrams, technical blueprints, microscopic images. A model can't shortcut these from the question text. They get 2 times weight. Photographs and paintings drop to 0.5x, kept only as a calibration baseline. The result is a 200-item probe that will catch an encoder regression that a random 200-item sample would almost certainly miss. Yes. Now, trade-offs. The main trade-off is that this approach depends on having reference model scores to compute consensus. You need prior runs to know which items are discriminative. If you're evaluating a model in a completely new domain where no reference scores exist, as the pruner has nothing to work from. The second trade-off, I used a flat 1.5x discriminative boost rather than a more theoretically optimal allocation. The reason is that with only 3 reference models, the variance estimates you need for the optimal approach are too noisy to be useful. I tested both across 1,000 random draws. Flat boost won on mean rank error. With 10 or more reference models, the optimal approach would start pulling ahead. What would change? With more reference models, consensus estimates get reliable enough to weight by cross-model variance items. The items where model scores spread widest rather than just mean pass rate. That's a better discriminability signal. With a live modal endpoint, you could run this adaptively. Evaluate a small probe first, update your estimates, then decide what to evaluate next. That gets you to the same rank preservation guarantee at half the budget. With more time, I tune the 1.5x boost per benchmark via grid surge and add a tool that measures rank preservation directly between a full run and a pruned run. So you have an empirical number rather than a structural argument. And to close, the bottom line, you get the same ranking in 3 to 5 times less compute. For Live Code Bench and AALCR, that's a stratified sample designed around discrimination. For MMMU, it's a targeted probe designed around encoder stress. Both are principled, reproducible, and wired into eval scopes so you can run them with a single command.